addiction is it's slow suicide. That's how I'm going to define it. You're
Yeah.
eventually going to kill yourself.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I like to stop here and welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. Time, 24 hours has been given to every man on this planet. And I want to thank Thomas for coming and sharing his precious time with us. And once it's spent, it's spent. And I want to invite everyone that is listening to us to learn how to value their time. It's a good lesson to learn. The other is journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It has created Thomas. And we want to honor him that he's affording us the opportunity to be invited to learn from his journey. Thomas, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
And I appreciate you having me here. So thank you very much.
It's an honor, man. As I mentioned to you, I always ask everyone this question because it's a poignant question, but I also want the listeners to understand that it involves them as well, that our life here on this planet is not a selfish one. It's a community. It's also an independent, but it's also an interdependent life that we have here on this planet. How do you serve mankind?
Yes. And that's an excellent question because my life is lived as a journey. And to understand that and answer that question, there's a dividing line. At the age of 29, I was in the military, and I was discharged for drug use, and I lost my military career. I ended up in the civilian world, and I was a broken shell of an individual and ended up finding recovery and going to a 90-day recovery facility and learning about how to get sober, and that things in my past I misunderstood or I didn't see it correctly. And it was my journey to go back to figure it out. And I wasn't capable of doing that. My emotions were shut off. I did not understand how to do that. And the fear was I was going to use again. So what I ended up doing is I went to take a job at an adolescent recovery facility. And in that, I did not go there to help the kids. I went there to figure out how to get sober. And what ended up happening is I did figure it out, but I also was given the gift of having young people um, mold me in the way that I was going to become what sits here today. And so that moment for the 29 and then the next, I would say 10 years, I had two jobs. I was an adolescent recovery facility counselor, and I was a unit director at a Boys and Girls Club. And therein lies what I have now dedicated my life to, the betterment and the understanding of our young people.
Isn't it wonderful how when we approach, especially kids, Thomas, and young people, how they have the ability to mold us and make us into the individual that we are today in such a profound way. I look at my children. I'm a dad with 5 boys, and my sons have profoundly impacted my life and made me who I am today, that I cannot imagine me being an individual as to who I am today without them in my life. I cannot. And it is such a profound impact that they have made into my being. So I actually know what you're talking about to some degree. Here you are, man. One of the things that we do here at Thomas is to go back to your beginnings. I call it the beginnings of our beginnings. And that's usually our family unit. This space, Thomas, we visit there for a few years. You know, we live in our late teens, if you will. But in this space, Thomas, is where we learn a couple of things. We learn some habits. We learn communication skills. And we usually get traumatized right around this time as well. Some trauma enter in, and based on that trauma, we'll make some decisions that how we are going to show up in our life, if you will. I call it we know it is our modus operandi, how we are going to live. How was your family unit like?
I come from the generation that my father was the role model, and his upbringing taught him how he was going to teach us. And that was all of his children would be seen, but not heard. And so
Yeah.
I come from the generation that was, my father said to me, if you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. And understand this, I love my father. We had a difficult relationship. But in the years that we evolved as a father son unit, I'm a junior. So he was Tom Sr., I'm Tom Jr.
Hmm.
I had a lot of expectations placed on me. I had younger siblings that I was supposed to be the role model for. I had that. The key element issue in that early stage was do as I say, not as I do.
Hmm.
And that's where the loggerheads come. I'm watching my father do and then telling me I have to do it somewhere a different way. And that
Yeah.
would be if he stretched the truth, if the legalities, I could not break a rule, but he could. And that's the upbringing. So that's the beginning for me of how it started in a family who had a mother that was absolutely loving and kind and was able to be the buffer
Yeah.
and make sure that all the kids knew that dad loved us. It was,
Yeah.
we didn't know that dad loved us, but mom told us dad loved us. And that's how the family evolved through that type of environment.
And as you grew up in that cauldron, Thomas, and that mom told you and kept reminding you that don't worry what he's doing, but dad loves you.
Yeah.
What was your relationship like to others outside of the family?
Yeah, I was lucky. First, educationally, I could get by with C's because I was an athlete, and my father was all about athletics. So if
Yeah.
I was playing football, baseball, basketball, C's were good enough. And so I had a close friendship with the in the school paradigm of
Hmm.
athletes, but this was I went to high school. I graduated from high school in 1977. So this was the age where it was transitioning from one world to the world we now live in. And I'm
Yeah.
specifically talking about the drugs of the day.
Yeah.
And as I shared with you, my military career within a decade, I will have self-destructed. But in that place, the marijuana was not what we smoked, or if you're smoking today, that stuff is like way too powerful. This was just a mellow buzz, and it brought groups together. There, we, I was in ninth grade when the United States went to busing. So
Mhm.
I am a product of having all of the cultures brought into school. And I would say in the ninth grade, we fought. In the 10th grade, we began to see that there were other ways, and that was through sports that we could, it didn't matter the color. I
Yeah.
am from the Bay Area in California, and it's very progressive. And so those experiences were wonderful for me. I had the athletic ability, I had the educational ability, I
Yeah.
had the wherewithal of enjoying company of people's and their stories. And so
Hmm.
that was what went into the early, because the military career, I was a hospital corpsman, I was a medic. And today I'm a social worker. So it
Yeah.
started there because of that surrounding of how my natural abilities and talents and what was in the air of the day.
When you, when you were heading to the military, what was your reasoning, Thomas, when you were looking at high
Okay.
school and going towards college and military? What was your reasoning to head to military versus school?
Okay, so you now are going to get to be, you will begin to see the pattern now. At the age of 18, my father said, I want you to leave my house because you cannot use your drugs around your younger siblings. And I said, fine, Pops, I want out of here anyways. And at that
Hmm.
time, the only thing that was available was the military.
Yeah.
So because my father threw me out for drug use, I went in the military. And then 10 years later, Uncle Sam threw me out because of drug use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got into the military. When you were there in the military,
Yes.
how was that lifestyle in with your mindset? Because the military is going to train you with certain things,
Sure.
and you're going to, the military is basically a mindset training as much as it is a physical training. How did you
Yes.
manage yourself there?
Okay. So I went in the military, nobody in my family, there's no prior knowledge, I know nothing about it. I go. In the
Yeah.
3rd week, because of in high school, I was athletic. In the 3rd week of boot camp, you can take a test to become a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
So I went and took the screening test in the 3rd week and I passed it. So I
Mhm.
went from boot camp to hospital corpsman A school to basic underwater demolition SEAL training. And that was a challenge to all of the aspects because it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's a calling. And the
Yeah.
thing with it is, for whatever reason, I had the mental acuity and the physical prowess to successfully graduate and become a Navy SEAL. And that was the most amazing experience of my life up to that point.
Yeah, because when you an athlete, it dabbles, if you will, with the ability to mess with push the mind. An
Yes,
athlete, even though you start at the beginning of training, and because I did track and field, and we were told and we were programmed to push beyond the pain, if you will.
yes,
And as an athlete, even a young athlete, we are told we're walking in the beginning stages, if you will, Thomas, with going beyond the normal acceptance of the body and stuff like that. So when you got there to the Navy SEAL, you had already begun some of the that thing back then, and these guys were taking you to another level, and you were probably, "Oh, hell, and this is going to be fun." And you got there and you excel beyond your wildest dream. When you got there and you pushed and you excel and you said this was the highlight of your life. When you stated that, Thomas, as the highlight, how did that feel to you as the highlight at that point?
Well, the key element to it is to follow your line of reasoning.
Yeah.
The key element to that type of training that goes beyond the military, there was a bell in the corner, and the easiest thing you can do is quit. All you got to do is go ring that bell. And
Hmm.
so you had this internal occurrence where your body was telling you quit, but your mind was saying no. And what was occurring was a strengthening of the mind of how you look at life. And
Yeah.
there were multiple lessons going on, but the key element was within me is an ability that is beyond my. And the only way, this is just how I feel about it, the only way I could get to it is if some outside force pushes me there where there's a reason to quit or succeed. And that piece was what was elemental. And the most important aspect of Buds was giving you the option of quitting or continuing. And you had to reach inside yourself and find the reason why you want to continue. And that
Yeah.
I've taken with the rest of my life. That came with me, even with the loss of the military career. It's still here today.
Yeah, and once you made that achievement and you got your tats and all the different things, and you came out and you have gained the notoriety and all the things that come with that, and you are part of the brotherhood, as they say, Thomas, and you're now with the brotherhood. Of course, those guys party hard, as they say, because I've known a couple of those boys.
Yep.
And as you're partying hard and you're getting deeper in it, how did that mindset begin to pull you in? Because now you have to surrender to it, if you will, and it begins to overtake you. Did you
Yeah.
notice overtaking you, or did you one day just woke up and say, hell, how do I get out of this? How did that process
Yeah.
happen when you woke up and realized this is too much? By that time, the army says, hey, you're beyond repair, if you will.
Yeah. So the thing with it is addiction is it's slow suicide. That's how I'm going to define it. You're
Yeah.
eventually going to kill yourself. And my arc of going from being able to graduate as a Navy SEAL, class 106, February 29th, 1980, somewhere in the 4th or 5th year, it began that I was wanting more to party than to continue to, within myself, climb and attain more insights, more knowledge, more ability, more talent, more schools, more. I lost track of that. And the piece with addiction for me, it blinded me to see that I needed help, but did not have the understanding to ask for it. And I was in an environment that was not conducive to saying, I got a problem with drinking. Drinking, yes. Drugs, no. And so it became intolerable in the ninth year, 6 month, when I fell asleep and did not get up for 3 days. And in the military, that's called UA, unauthorized absence. And that was the reason that they used, because I had been falling apart for the last couple of years. And that was like the final, that's broke the camel's back. And so I was not able to ask for help. I was not able to say, I can't do this. I had an incident occur where the military made the decision for me and said, you're out. Goodbye.
So here's this guy, worked very hard, attained this thing.
Yep.
And several years ago, 10 years ago, this was the top of his game. He had achieved this. 10 years
Mm-hmm.
later, he's at the bottom of
Yep.
he's at the bottom. He is now at a place where they say, okay, you're out. We can't deal with this. Talk to me about that day, Thomas. Here it is. You were at your pinnacle 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You are at your lowest at that time within that arena, the same arena. 10 years ago, you're at the top. 10 years
Mm-hmm.
later, you're on the bottom. That day, what was
Yeah.
that realization of like on that day?
In having you ask, and from my memory of, it was absolutely, utterly devastating, but there was an underlying current of relief. I finally had, because I was living a lie. I'm sneaking my drugs and lying and deceiving and manipulating. And when it all ended, it was like almost a relief. It came as a relief. But the loss of, see, the job, this being a Navy SEAL is, it's not a job, it's a calling. And
Yeah.
it was in my identity and being a SEAL were one and the same. There was no separation. And when
Yeah.
that was removed from me, I was absolutely lost without having any understanding. So all of those things are going on, and I am in horrible physical shape. I am incredibly addicted, and I have lost my purpose and meaning. And I end up back to my father, who 10 years earlier said, you're back and I see nothing's changed. And it was like, but you know what? There's a piece in here that we spoke of earlier, that the suicide piece did not come until later in life for me. I had done much, and I actually had 32 years of sobriety. And I went out. I forgot that I was responsible for living a life in a certain way, being accountable, and having people in my life that would hold me accountable. And that occurred 5 years ago. And during that time frame was the first time I ever experienced being suicidal. I actually had a plan, and I went and I was going to fulfill it. And it was horrible, and it was telling. But in my story, I want to make sure that that piece gets in there, because it comes
Yeah.
32 years after where we're at right now. And I became a clinician, a therapist, like uh, 18 years after my dismissal from the military. And at that point, I'm working with people who are suicidal. I know what that is, because I have the ability to get people to share that when I sense it, but I didn't understand it in the manner in which I came to understand it when it was me who was suicidal.
Yeah.
And since, in the last 5 years, I have rethought that whole process of how um, I interact with my own mental health. And as I interface with all of society, I have a radar now that has a sensory pickup. And if that occurs, I ask certain questions that others feel uncomfortable asking. I will go into that place if I sense it with a family, a friend, or somebody I'm looking across the room and it's just, there's something wrong there. And I will ask, I will seek, I will see. And again, I want to make sure that is introduced into my storyline because it's critical to what I want to share with you, to have everyone that you're, all of the people that are listening to you on a regular basis hear from me that piece of the story.
Let's talk about it, Thomas, because it is a part of the storyline, as I mentioned, of this podcast as
Yeah.
well, and the genesis of the podcast. Because there are lots of people, and I mentioned to you, for those errands that are out there, and many of those that are listening to my podcast, they know who that individual is. And many of you that are listening are maybe at a place of where suicidal thoughts are there. And here we have a person that many years after and dealing with individuals that as are thinking about it is an individual that is in working as a counselor and is also contemplating that. Thomas, talk to those that are contemplating it and be specific about that question that you want to go there. Let's go there, Thomas, as to those individuals out there, because our intention is to rescue those from our conversation that are contemplating anything like that, because we want them to know that you don't have to do that. There's much more to life. Let's go there, Thomas. Use the platform and let's talk to those with your knowledge and your insight as to anyone that is contemplating that type of decision, if you will.
Yeah, the driving statistic for me is two domains: the ages of 13 to 23 and all my brother and sister veterans. Today, 19 veterans will take their life. Yesterday, 19 veterans took their life, and tomorrow 19 more veterans are going to take their life. 13 to 23 is an absolute abomination that nobody in the country wants to talk about, but the suicide rate is horrific amongst young people. So my storyline is to share and say that no matter how dark it is, there is a, a light somewhere in there. And when it was me that was there, I, I did not see the light. I had siblings that made me remember that they were there, and I got a shading of the light. So if you're not being surrounded by loved ones, and here's the thing, I hid suicide really well because it's a very personal thing. I don't want to share that with anyone because once the decision's made, it has nothing to do with anyone else. And that is so, one who has survived it, that is so wrong, because the fact of the matter is what I would have done to my family, to my siblings, to the world at large, to all these young people that I've been dealing with for decades, I would have left with them something that would have contradicted what they thought they knew of me. And then it would have been them trying to process their misunderstanding, confusing them even more. And these are the things that I learned when it was my own suicide that I was deep in, because it's, if you're there and you've made the decision, you're not going to reach out to anybody. And that, if you are out there listening to me right now, I would share with you that somebody in your life is worth living for. And for that person, you take the thought that you're going to commit suicide and go share it with them. Because if you're not going to share it with them, then you will leave them with a memory. And it's not a memory that it's a memory I didn't want to leave anybody once I came to understand and work my way through. And here's the thing is, where I'm going with this is what I learned. There's a line in there that if you don't reach out to someone, you're already dead. There's a place in there that if I didn't get to it, but I have come to understand it, that if you've crossed that threshold and you don't know it right now, you do not know you've crossed the threshold, that threshold will unconsciously lead only to one place, and that is the taking of your life. And so I'm sharing with you because it was there and you can't see it. Again, share with somebody, reach out and tell somebody, because no matter how horrible it is, you're worth it. That's
And
what I have
I'm
for
going
you.
to tell you guys a story, and I'm going to reiterate a story that I've said many times. And this is a true story of my friend Erin. She was coming, hugging everyone, in a restaurant, a bar restaurant, a friend of ours. And I saw her hugging everyone and she's coming to me and we embraced for a little while. And then we had a conversation for about an hour and a half. And at the end of the conversation, she said to me that, Ken, you're the last person that I was going to say goodbye to before I committed suicide. And so she spoke to me. And as a result of us having a conversation, she changed her mind. And what Thomas is saying, talk to someone. Find
Yeah.
someone, find that individual that would be the last person you would talk to and go talk to them and make them aware of it so that you can have that conversation and change your mind. And she changed her mind, had a family and lived a full life. And so we want to be able to have you not make that decision on your own. As Thomas said, if you don't want to talk to someone, you're dead. We don't want you to do that. Life is much precious, much precious. You're going to leave someone in tremendous amount of pain if you go ahead. Trust me, someone out there cares a lot about you and you don't want to do that. So Thomas, here you are, man. You rescued yourself from that pain as you move through your life and you made a decision to move on and to stay with us and to continue the journey here on this earth. Talk to me about the impact that you made as a result of staying and working with the children here. Talk to me first as to how did you first made an impact on the children and how they made an impact on you.
Yeah, the piece is the first 10 years of my sobriety, I was working with, the adolescent recovery facility and the Boys and Girls Club. In that moment, that's when I felt that I had been given a gift and wanted to give it back. The next 10 years, I went back to school, got the bachelor's and master's, the license, the board certification. I got all that because young people would come to me with their fears, their concerns, their troubles. And there were certain times I didn't have answers and I did not find that acceptable. So that period of education was so that I could better educate myself to their needs. And then I needed the experience and I worked child protective services. I worked juvenile justice, the youth authority. I needed to actually work with them so that I could ask them. No, I didn't ask them. I allowed them to mold me so that it was whatever it is about me. I can walk into a group of teenagers and young adults and
Yeah.
I'm not an old fart. So those things were all in my mind's eye to create. And the reason why was because as I saw it, young people gave me my life back and now I want to give it back. So let's take that last 5-year period of what it did for me. I wrote a book. I wrote a book for the simple reason is I do not like where the country is going right now. And more importantly, I don't like that our young people are not being, their voice is not being heard. And there are two elements for that reason that are two elements that are driving me right now is the national debt is a bill that they're going to have to pay. And they do care about the planet and the issue that we're having with it becoming, global warming. It matters to them, but they don't have a voice. So I wrote that book right back there, Special Welfare, Social Warfare. It's adolescent to adulthood, a guidebook. I tell the story in there of how, what, everything I'm sharing with you right now. And then I had created a program that I was unable to get funded. So I introduced it into the book so that somebody could see it and maybe they could run it, make it happen, or they could get in contact with me and we can make it. The bottom line right now is where the country is. I have come to understand how young people learn. Young people learn from me, not by what I told them. It's what I did and showed them. They don't care what you say. They care what you do. And they learn by watching the adults. And right now, the adult population of this country is not talking to each other, is angry, is fearful, is not doing what is necessary for our young people because we're so afraid. We're so locked into each other. And our young people are looking out to learn how to get through this, and they're seeing us fail. So I write a book so that I can come before you, so I can say to my young people, I'm here. I'm doing this as an advocate for you. It's my intention and hope that you will embrace me. You will tell me that you want me to do this. And then once you have embraced me, you tell me how you want to do this, because I know you are having issues with our world, and I will be a spokesperson for you until you can find your voice, and then I'll get the hell out of the way and let you do what you can do. But right now, we're not giving them voice, and I don't find that acceptable.
Yeah, it's amazing how the leaders of this planet has let the young folks down, and they don't want to get out of the way to help them at
No.
all and do anything. It's a shame. And you see many of the young folks are rising up, pushing to begin to be heard,
Yeah.
and how they're being muffled by the powers that be and are making fun of by the powers that be. Is a shame as we look at it. And so I am glad that there's someone that is there standing in the gap, if you will, as the avatar to be there for that awakening as it is moving forward for them, because there is a definite need for it as we watch the
Yes.
planet simply just is in pain and crying and needing help. And the leaders of today just refuse to do it. So Thomas, here you are. I know you mentioned it and you alluded to some of that about the young folks, but I want you to address us all. You have a mic, man, and a couple of billion people on the planet, and you alluded to some of it, but you have this mic and you're able to address us all. What would you say, Thomas?
I would say what I always say, and that is that I focus this conversation directly at the youth of America, young people. And because of the manner in which young youth are created and affiliated, I'm also talking to your parents. And I've I have a private practice. I work with young people, and I have parents that are at a loss right now that I share over and over again. It's to say to the young people that I'm here and I see you, I hear you, and for the parents to give the support that is necessary and to clarify one critical part that over the decades of being a clinician, I've had parents come to me saying, "You're so good with youth. I feel like I'm a terrible parent." And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute here. And I give this is the same thing I have said over and over again. I go, do your kids know you love them? Do your kids know that you love them? And if the answer is yes, my reply to that is, well, you can pretty much drop them on their heads and it's going to be okay. So the voice that is speaking into this microphone right now is I am asking to become an advocate for the youth of this country. And I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking for the opportunity to earn your trust. I know that you're capable, but because your voice is being drowned out, I wish to make that different so that because you can't shut me up. And the reason you can't shut me up is because I have 6+ decades of history that I've seen. I know and was there in the 60s and the 70s. And I'm here today to let you know that the powers to be, they were your age once before. And when they were your age, I was their age too. And I remember them and I saw what they did. And no matter what they're telling you today they are, I can tell you some other stories about them. And what this all comes down to is if we do not talk with one another, we are condemning our youth to a world and a life that is nothing that you would ever wish upon your worst enemy. By letting your walls down, by all of us letting our walls down for the purpose of bringing what we wish to give or take, but instead offer it for our youth. Because whether you're left, you're right, you're up, you're down, it doesn't matter. We all have kids. And if we put them first, then we are capable of being noble creatures that we are not now. And I am here seeking to become an honorable individual in action so our young people can see what that means. And I would ask the adult population to walk with me on this one. Walk with me in honor of our youth and let's look at what their needs are and let's give it to them. Thank you for that microphone.
And we're going to provide everything for you guys to get to Thomas, man. It's really important. And you could tell from his heart that he has this big heart for the kids and for become an advocate for them on behalf of them. And you parents out there that are listening to this podcast, we're going to make sure that all the links for you and the book, we want you guys to get access to that book, buy it, read it, see if there's a way that you can assist in making his dream possible, get it into the hands of the kids, get it. I always tell you guys, create book clubs that can read together and see if there's a way that you can assist the author in making that thing a possibility. You may know someone that knows someone to make it a reality. And that's how we get things done. I want to thank you so much, Thomas, for coming here at Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a good one, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the platform that you offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.